Hello, I'm Stefan. This is True Stories in a Composer's Life. In this episode, I want to rewind all the way to my first live gig. Let's talk about how nerves and chaos are part of the game for every teen band just starting out. I think it's safe to say that for most people that work in commercial music, the common drug was playing in a band as a teenager. That is a life-changing, personality-forming experience. I have played with quite a few people in all kinds of bands over the years, and a surprising number of them actually made music their career. The majority, of course, went on to do something else, but they never quit music. They either still play in bands, or they set up a home studio to record stuff for their own enjoyment or to share with the world. Nobody I know decided one day to just get rid of all their stuff and never touch a music instrument again. If you have made it with your teen band to where you actually played in front of an audience, and let's say this was more than just a few years ago, I contend that you don't remember that much about the actual music, but everything about what went wrong. Because no matter how much you may have practiced your butt off, no matter how cool you think you were, there's no way that this event went over without a hitch. It's usually the guitarists that mess everything up because they show up the last minute with some hot new piece of gear they don't know how to use. But the best place for these stories, of course, is the comments section. So please share your funniest or most embarrassing moments. As a 15-year-old, I played in a 4-piece band, drums, bass, 2 guitars. I did lead vocals and I played lead guitar. Can you guess? I really wanted to be that lead guy. Honestly, Jojo, the other guitar player, he was every bit as good as I was. Back then, he's actually left me in the dust since. But one day he walked in and said, "Guys, we have a gig." Now, we didn't know what to play, we didn't know what to wear, but for starters, we had a name. We were called Beethoven. You know what? We were incredibly lucky because we didn't have to play our first gig in someone's living room for a birthday party or something, because as it happens, both Jojo and the drummer, they were neighbors in this small town just outside of Munich, and that town celebrated its 1200th anniversary. So the mayor went all out. There was a big party that lasted for almost a week. They set up this huge pop-up hall out on a field somewhere that could easily hold probably a couple of thousand people or so. Now, I don't know how this came about, but presumably their parents knew everyone and their mother and somehow were able to get us this gig. But of course, everyone also knew we were the rookies. So in reality, we were only allowed to do like 3 tunes. And of course, we had to start early in the afternoon when the place was barely half full. But that was still a good 700, maybe 800 people. Really a phenomenal turnout for just getting your feet wet. We had spent hours working on our set list of 3 songs, right? And the guys thought with our name Beethoven, it would be such a brilliant idea to do a Chuck Berry cover of Roll Over Beethoven. We were doing a bunch of 12 bars anyway. But I said, no, I don't even know the lyrics. And then Jojo said, I can do it. So Jojo and I would split the lead vocals, we finalized our set list, we put it in large letters on sheets of paper to put on the floor, because we'd seen other pro bands do this sort of thing. Yeah, these other bands probably had more like 30 or 40 songs on their list, not just 3, but we wanted to do everything we could to look as pro as possible, of course. Now behind this pop-up hall there was a big truck stuffed to the brim with broadcast gear and whatnot. I think they were running the PA from back there. I asked the guy in the truck if he would be so kind to tape our performance, because obviously I wanted to have a recording of this. I didn't even have the money to buy a decent blank tape, so I gave him this pre-recorded cassette of the Double Hit Parade Volume 2, asked him to please wipe that out in favor of Beethoven Volume 1, and then it was time to hit the stage. I hate to admit it, but I was that guy who showed up the last minute with something else. You know why? I didn't even have a guitar amp. I played on a little contraption about this size that a friend of mine had hacked together. That thing was his first project and it sucked big time. I wasn't even allowed to turn it up because when I did, when he wasn't around, the thing started acting up and the speaker would bounce against the case or something, going gong, 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 gong. So I had to turn it down. It sounded flat and weak. It looked ridiculous. How could I go on stage with that thing? And so I begged my brother on my knees to please let me borrow his amp. And after enjoying this treatment for about a week, on the last day he finally said, okay, fine, you can have it. But that was a Leslie speaker. You know those big fat cabinets with the rotating speakers inside? They're for organ playing. My brother's a keyboard player. So it wasn't even very well suited for my purpose, but hey, it looked impressive, it was loud. But I never got a chance to set my sound. And so it was always too loud, or it was too soft, or I wanted to step on my fuzz and then I stepped on the Leslie instead. The thing was giving me the creeps, actually. The other thing that was weird, I mean, we had a mic in our practice room, but now whoever set up the stage figured 4 guys, 4 mics. You stick 4 mics in front of 4 teenagers, they will all use it, of course, and suddenly we realized we never even thought about what to do in between the songs. Are you supposed to crack a joke? Are you supposed to say, hello music? We were all trying to fill this void by yapping at the same time, making complete idiots of ourselves. And even during the songs, suddenly there were these backing vocals coming out of nowhere that nobody had ever even tried before. But the worst of all was actually right off the bat walking up on the stage. Just a few steps for a young band, but a giant leap on your way to being humbled. Think about it. Our world was a tiny cubicle in the drummer's parents' house in the basement. Now suddenly there was all this space. This stage was the width of this hall, probably a good 40, maybe 50 feet across. It looked intimidating. With each step up these stairs, I felt my legs give in, my knees turned into rubber, and I started shaking uncontrollably. I was holding onto my guitar, not to play, but for support. Now, fortunately, I didn't have to walk that far. I was standing right there, stage left. Next to me was the bass player, center stage, which is actually odd because he didn't even sing anything. I mean, I was the lead guy, right? Why the hell wasn't I center stage? Jojo was stage right. I didn't see him because of that bass player. You know, I really think we have to talk about this. And I also didn't see my drummer because he was way behind me. I only saw him when I went back to fiddle with my amp. People, this whole event went over my head like a 747. I do not kid you, I have no memory whatsoever of being up on this stage and actually playing music. Zero. Nada, zilch, it's just gone. It's just what I said in the beginning of the video. All I remember is everything that went wrong. My memory sets back in after we were finished. We left the stage. There was this guy sitting by the exit, Paul, a classmate of mine. He also played in his own band. And as I walked past him, he goes, "Hey, Stefan, those lyrics to Roll Over Beethoven, those weren't the original lyrics." I mean, I still had adrenaline up to here. How dare he subtract marks from this phenomenal performance that he was fortunate enough to witness live and up close? And I said, well, of course they were. In reality, I had no idea what Jojo was singing. In fact, I had no idea what any of these guys had been doing because I was busy fingering chords and trying to not collapse with my jelly knees. But after we listened to the tape, I had to admit that Paul was right. Heck, it's not even like Jojo didn't do the original lyrics. He hadn't done any lyrics. The nerves had also gotten the best of him, and he had done semi-English sounding gibberish. And for your enjoyment, I have transcribed this gibberish, and I will leave you with that for the rest of this video. But please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of True Stories. Thanks for watching.
Beethoven. over Beethoven. Roll over Beethoven. They roll over Beethoven. Oh yeah.
Dankeschön für den freundlichen Applaus.
Was jetzt?
Hier fehlt der total ausgeflippte Fan. Da hier eine große Meinung...
Zweimal Bier für den Herrn Pfarrer, weil er so nett gewinkt hat.